Every city possesses a surface, a visible, bustling skin of glass towers, concrete arteries, and the relentless motion of millions. From high above, the skyline glows with an artificial, electric pulse, a testament to the present moment. But this is only half the story. Beneath the pavement, beneath the foundation of every skyscraper and the roots of every park, lies a different reality. The descent begins where the light fails. As the city hum fades into the distance, the atmosphere shifts. The air grows heavy, cooling rapidly as the concrete gives way to stone. The sounds of traffic are replaced by the rhythmic, singular drip of water against ancient masonry. A low, resonant hum vibrates through the floor, a sound that does not belong to the modern world. Here, the geometry of the streets dissolves into shadow. A jagged, forgotten archway looms ahead, half buried in the earth. It is a threshold between the world we know and the one that has been sealed away. The city has not erased its history. It has simply built over it, layer upon layer, leaving the past to wait in the dark. Tonight, we cross that threshold. We descend into the silence. The transition is absolute. Beyond the archway, the air carries the scent of damp earth and centuries of stagnant time. The modern city above is now a distant memory, replaced by the crushing weight of stone ceilings and narrow, winding corridors. Here, the skin of the city is peeled back to reveal its true, skeletal foundation. We are walking through the forgotten veins of a metropolis. Look closely at the walls. The masonry changes from machine-cut concrete to hand-hewn blocks, stacked by hands that turned to dust long before the first skyscraper. This is the hidden underworld. It is not just a void, but a complex, multi-layered archive of human ambition. Entire streets, once bustling with the commerce of a different age, now sit in total darkness. Chambers that served as vaults, cisterns, or crypts remain sealed. The ground beneath our feet is a graveyard of architectural intent. Every layer tells a story of what was discarded, buried, or left behind. We are descending into the city's subconscious, a realm where the past is not dead but merely waiting. This is the world beneath the world. Welcome to the Dark Future Archive. We are here to document the spaces that history chose to abandon. Our mission is precise: to map the buried streets, forgotten chambers, and ancient foundations that lie beneath the world's most iconic cities. This is not a casual survey of tunnels, but an excavation of the subterranean layers that define our collective past. We will traverse the damp, lightless corridors of medieval masonry, navigate the echoing vaults of forgotten cisterns, and stand within the silent, stone-walled crypts that predate the modern grid. From the sprawling underground rivers that once powered early industry, to the sealed chambers of civilizations long since buried by the weight of progress, we seek the truth hidden in the dark. Every era has left its mark here. We will examine how different societies built, lived, and eventually vanished, leaving their architecture to be consumed by the earth. Join us as we shine a light into the places where the sun has not reached for centuries. This is the archive of the hidden world. Cities are not static. They are living, breathing organisms that constantly shed their skin. When a metropolis expands, it does not simply move outward. It builds upward, stacking new stone and steel directly onto the bones of what came before. This vertical accumulation creates a silent, submerged history. Beneath the pavement of a modern plaza, you might find the cobblestones of a medieval market. Beneath that, the foundations of a Roman villa, and deeper still, the silt of a prehistoric riverbed. We often mistake the surface for the whole, but the city is a palimpsest, a manuscript written over and over again until the original text is nearly obscured. This is the submerged history of human civilization. It is not lost, it is merely waiting. Every layer we peel back reveals a different era of ambition. The past does not disappear when the wrecking ball swings or the foundation is poured. It is compressed, sealed, and preserved in the dark. We are walking on top of centuries of discarded dreams, and the ground beneath us is far more crowded than the bustling streets above would ever suggest. The descent begins not with a leap, but with a transition. We leave the sunlight and the noise of the surface, moving through the first threshold, the modern utility corridors. These are the arteries of the contemporary city, packed with high-voltage cables, fiber optic bundles, and pressurized water mains. The air here is dry, smelling of ozone and heated metal, a sterile environment designed for maintenance and efficiency. It is the skin of the modern world, a functional cage built to keep the city above moving. But follow these corridors long enough, and the geometry begins to shift. The smooth, poured concrete walls give way to something older, something crafted by hand. We move from the industrial present into the Victorian past. The transition is marked by a change in texture and sound. The hard, flat surfaces of modern engineering are replaced by the irregular, porous faces of hand-fired brick. These are the sewers of the 19th century, grand in their ambition, built with a permanence that defies the temporary nature of the surface world. The mortar has darkened with age, and the tunnels arch with a deliberate, heavy grace. Here, the modern city's infrastructure is merely a thin veneer. Moving deeper, the Victorian brickwork begins to sprout a secondary, more chaotic layer. Here, the grand tunnels are choked with the remnants of a younger city's ambition. Thick, iron pipes, now rusted to the color of dried blood, snake along the walls in tangled, illogical clusters. Some are capped with heavy, brass-fitted valves that haven't turned in a century. Others have been severed, their jagged edges weeping a slow, rhythmic drip. This is the circulatory system of a vanished era, a labyrinth of conduits that once carried steam, gas, and water to homes that no longer exist. The air here is heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and oxidized metal. Every movement triggers a metallic groan from the pipes. It is a graveyard of utility. You can trace the path of these forgotten lines as they disappear into bricked-up alcoves, leading toward chambers that have been sealed off. The silence is not absolute. It is punctuated by the steady, relentless ping of water hitting metal, a clockwork heartbeat that marks the passage of time. These pipes are the veins of the city's ghost, a complex, rusting network that reminds us that every modern convenience is built upon a discarded, mechanical ancestor. Beyond the rusted iron and the weeping pipes, the tunnel walls undergo a final, dramatic transformation. The hand-fired brick of the 19th century vanishes, replaced by massive, rough-hewn blocks of limestone and granite. These are the medieval foundations, the silent, subterranean giants that have anchored the city for centuries. Each stone is gargantuan, fitted together without mortar, held in place by nothing but gravity and the crushing weight of the world above. Run a hand across the surface. The stone is ice-cold and damp, etched with the marks of the masons who shaped these blocks. Above us, the modern city is a blur of steel and glass, a fragile, temporary skin. Yet, it rests entirely upon this ancient, unyielding skeleton. The geometry here is different, defined by thick, low-vaulted arches that seem to compress the very air. These foundations were never meant to be seen. The silence here is heavy, absolute, and ancient. It is the sound of deep earth pressing against stone, a constant, low-frequency hum. Beyond the medieval stone, the tunnel opens into a vast, unexpected void. The air here is stagnant, trapped for centuries behind a collapsed retaining wall. As the light sweeps across the darkness, it reveals not just dirt or rock, but the impossible. An entire street, frozen in time. Cobblestones, worn smooth by the passage of phantom feet, stretch out into the gloom. This is a fragment of the 18th century, a layer of the city that was never demolished, only buried and forgotten. A row of low, timber-framed storefronts lines the path, their windows dark and hollow. A wooden sign hangs by a single rusted chain, swaying slightly in the draft, though no wind should exist here. The street is a ghost town, preserved in a vacuum of dust and silence. A discarded iron lantern sits near a doorway, its glass intact, waiting for a flame that went out 200 years ago. There is no decay here, only a profound, suspended stillness. You can see the ruts in the road where heavy carriage wheels once ground against the stone. It is a tactile, haunting reminder that the city did not grow upward. It grew over itself, sealing its own history beneath a tomb of brick and mortar. Every shadow in this buried street feels occupied, a silent witness to a life that stopped mid-stride, leaving behind a perfect, subterranean echo of a world that refused to vanish entirely. The air shifts. The dry, stagnant dust of the ghost street gives way to a sharp, metallic dampness. A low, rhythmic thrum vibrates through the soles of our boots, growing stronger with every step away from the buried storefronts. We follow the sound to a massive, arched culvert constructed of dark, slick brick. A section of the wall has collapsed, revealing the source of the vibration. Beyond the breach, a river surges. It is not a trickle, but a powerful, black vein of water, moving with relentless force through the city's underbelly. Centuries ago, engineers forced this river into a subterranean tunnel, burying it beneath millions of tons of stone and steel. Yet, it remains. The water churns against the curved walls, white foam visible even in the dim light, throwing a constant, cold spray into the air. It is a living, breathing entity, trapped in a concrete throat, its current as strong today as it was before the first foundation was ever laid. The sound is deafening, a roar that echoes through the narrow tunnel, drowning out the distant, muffled hum of the modern world above. Leaving the roar of the river behind, the tunnel narrows into a cramped, low-ceilinged alcove. The air here is heavy, still, and smells of damp earth and iron. A beam of light cuts through the darkness, landing on a wooden surface that has defied the rot of centuries. It is a workbench, scarred by years of labor, its edges worn smooth by calloused hands. Scattered across the surface are the remnants of a life interrupted. A set of iron chisels, their edges dulled but recognizable, and a collection of ceramic shards that once formed a simple bowl. A leather pouch sits nearby, its contents spilled a handful of copper coins, oxidized to a dull green, resting exactly where they were dropped. Someone stood here, working by the flicker of a lamp, before the world above decided this space was no longer needed. A single, unbroken clay jug sits tucked into a corner, protected by a fallen brick, as if waiting for a master who never returned. Moving deeper, the tunnel walls transition from brick to cold, unyielding stone. The ceiling drops, forcing a crouch, as the path terminates abruptly against a vertical slab of iron. It is a door, massive and reinforced with thick, rusted crossbars that have fused into the surrounding masonry over the last century. There is no handle, only a heavy, circular plate where a lock once sat, now pitted and corroded by the relentless moisture of the deep earth. A thick layer of mineral deposits coats the surface, creating a jagged, crystalline texture that catches the light of the torch. This is not a simple partition. It is a deliberate barrier, designed to keep something contained or to keep the world out. A faint, metallic scent hangs in the air, sharper and more concentrated than the dampness of the outer tunnels. The door does not yield to pressure. It is anchored into the bedrock, a silent sentinel guarding a space that has not seen a human presence for over 100 years. Curiosity pulls at the mind, wondering what lies on the other side. Beyond the narrow, suffocating confines of the corridor, the space suddenly fractures. The walls pull back, retreating into an immense, cavernous void that swallows the beam of the torch. This is a cistern, a subterranean cathedral built to hold the lifeblood of a city long gone. Massive stone arches rise from the darkness, their curves precise and imposing, supporting a ceiling that seems to vanish into the gloom. The air here is different, cool, still, and carrying the sharp, metallic tang of stagnant water. Below, the floor is entirely submerged, a dark, perfectly level mirror that stretches toward the unseen edges of the chamber. As the torchlight sweeps across the surface, the water ripples, sending distorted reflections of the stone pillars dancing against the walls. It is a place of profound architectural silence. There is no sound of the city above, No vibration of traffic, only the rhythmic, hollow drip of condensation falling from the vaulted ceiling into the pool. Each drop creates a concentric ring that expands, breaks, and vanishes, marking the passage of time in a space where time has no meaning. It is a submerged monument, waiting for the light to return. Leaving the cistern behind, the path narrows, the ground rising sharply until the ceiling forces a stoop. The air grows heavy, thick with the scent of dry earth and ancient dust. Here, the walls are no longer smooth stone, but honeycombed with rectangular recesses, each one carved deep into the bedrock. This is a place of rest, a forgotten crypt where the city buried its dead long before the modern skyline was even a dream. The torchlight flickers, casting long, erratic shadows that dance across the uneven floor. Every niche is empty, save for the grit of centuries. Stone slabs, once sealed with care, now lie cracked or missing entirely, exposing the hollow voids behind. Reaching out, a hand brushes against the face of a memorial marker. The surface is soft, worn smooth by the relentless friction of time and moisture. Where names, dates, and lineage were once deeply etched, there is now only a featureless, weathered depression. The identity of those interred here has been erased, scrubbed clean by the slow, grinding passage of the ages. It is a profound, unsettling stillness. Each step forward kicks up a fine gray powder. The passage terminates at a sheer, vertical drop, a jagged wound in the earth that reveals the city's true anatomy. Here, the ground is not a single foundation, but a layered cake of human ambition. The torchlight illuminates the cross-section, and the story of the city unfolds in horizontal bands of sediment and stone. At the base, the lowest level consists of massive, hand-hewn limestone blocks, the remnants of an ancient, pre-medieval settlement. These stones are darkened by centuries of damp, their edges rounded by the slow seep of groundwater. Directly above this, a distinct line of red clay brick marks the second layer, a chaotic jumble of medieval foundations and cellar walls that seem to lean into one another for support. This middle tier is dense, cramped, and scarred by the remnants of hearths and drainage pipes that no longer lead anywhere. Finally, capping the entire structure, a thick, brutal slab of modern reinforced concrete seals the history below. It is a stark, gray ceiling that supports the weight of the streets above, oblivious to the fragile, crumbling worlds it has buried. The transition between these eras is not smooth. It is a violent, jagged collision of materials. The wide view of history vanishes as the floor slopes downward, forcing entry into a fissure barely wider than a human shoulder. The expansive chambers are gone, replaced by a throat of rough-hewn rock that squeezes inward with every step. Shoulders brush against cold, damp walls on both sides, eliminating any chance of turning around quickly. The air changes instantly. It grows heavy, stagnant, and stripped of oxygen, pressing against the lungs with each shallow breath. The torch flame flickers violently. Dust motes hang motionless in the gloom, undisturbed by any breeze. Here, the geometry of the city dissolves into chaos. This is not a designed corridor. It is a scar left by forgotten laborers. A sudden drop in temperature chills the sweat on the skin. Stop. Look back. The path already traveled seems to have shifted, the shadows lengthening into shapes that block the retreat. There are no markers here. This section exists outside every known map. The walls close in further, reducing the world to a circle of light. The silence that had been absolute suddenly fractures. It begins as a subtle tremor, a low-frequency pulse that travels through the soles of your boots before it reaches your ears. It is rhythmic, steady, and entirely out of place in this dead subterranean tomb. You stop. The movement of the air seems to stall. Then, the sound grows. It is a dull, heavy thumping, like the impact of something massive striking the bedrock on the other side of the wall. Each beat is deliberate, separated by a heartbeat of anticipation. The vibration is strong enough to dislodge loose grit from the ceiling, which rains down in a fine, dry powder. You press your palm against the rock face, and the stone is alive with the kinetic energy of whatever is pacing just beyond the barrier. It is not the shifting of tectonic plates or the settling of old foundations. This has the cadence of a living thing. The thumping moves, tracking parallel to the tunnel. Every time it strikes, the sound echoes through the narrow passage, distorting and deepening until it feels like the walls themselves are groaning under the pressure. You remain motionless, watching the dust motes dance in the torchlight, waiting for the next strike to reveal how close the presence has come. The tunnel ends without warning. One moment, the walls are pressing against your shoulders. The next, they simply vanish. You step forward, expecting more stone, but your boot finds only empty air. You pull back, heart hammering against your ribs, and raise the light. The beam cuts through the darkness, but it finds nothing to hold on to. No far wall, no floor, no ceiling. Just a vast, vertical shaft that swallows the light whole. The scale of the space is impossible to reconcile with the cramped passage you just crawled through. You lean over the edge, the cold air rising from the depths. You drop a loose stone into the abyss. You wait. 5 seconds pass. 10. There is no sound of an impact, no clatter of debris, only the hollow, echoing silence of a bottomless throat. The realization hits with the force of a blow. You are standing on a narrow ledge suspended over a void. The path behind you, once a way out, now feels like a distant memory, a thin vein leading back to a world that no longer exists. The isolation is absolute. The light flickers, struggling against the sheer volume of the darkness. You are alone, staring into a depth that has no name and no end. The flashlight in your hand gives a sharp, metallic click. The beam stutters, casting long, erratic shadows against the jagged stone of the ledge. You shake it, hoping to stabilize the connection, but the light only dims further, pulsing like a dying heart. Then it happens. The bulb flickers once, twice, and dies. The darkness is instantaneous and absolute, a heavy, suffocating shroud that presses against your eyes. You are blind, suspended over the void, with only the sound to guide you. The resonant hum you heard earlier has returned, but it is different now. It is louder, vibrating through the very air, a low-frequency drone that rattles your teeth and makes the skin on your arms prickle. You reach out, fingers brushing against cold, damp rock, searching for a handhold, but the stone feels slick and alien under your touch. The hum rises in pitch, a grinding, tectonic sound that suggests massive weight shifting just beyond your reach. Every instinct screams for you to move. Then, the flashlight flares to life again, a sudden, blinding white spark that reveals the wall just inches from your face and the outline of something that does not belong. The beam of light holds steady, no longer flickering. It illuminates a wall of calcified mud and shattered rock, a barrier that has clearly stood for millennia. You reach out, your fingers sinking into the damp, packed earth. You pull at a heavy slab of stone, and it shifts with a grinding, wet sound. More debris cascades down, revealing the surface beneath. It is not the rough, unhewn rock of the tunnel. It is smooth, dark basalt, carved with patterns that defy any known architectural style. You scrape away the remaining sediment, and the light catches a massive, circular seal embedded in the center of the structure. This is no natural formation. It is a gate, a monumental threshold buried deep beneath the city's foundations, predating the earliest records of the civilization above. You press your palm against the cold, vibrating stone. The hum you heard earlier is coming from here, a deep, rhythmic pulse that resonates in your very bones. You find a recessed groove near the edge of the seal and exert pressure. The stone gives way with a sharp, metallic snap. A hairline fracture appears, glowing with a faint, bioluminescent light. The gate groans, a sound like shifting tectonic plates, and begins to slide inward. The air pressure in the chamber drops, pulling you toward the opening. You step forward, and the ground beneath your boots shifts from rough, uneven rock to polished, seamless stone. The narrow tunnel ends abruptly, opening into a space so vast that the beam of your flashlight fails to find the far wall. You sweep the light across the expanse, and the darkness retreats to reveal a sprawling subterranean plaza. Rows of towering statues rise from the floor, carved from a dark, iridescent mineral that catches the light and throws it back in jagged, violet shards. They possess elongated limbs and faces that seem to shift in the flickering beam, their eyes hollowed out and filled with a faint, pulsing glow. You walk deeper into the plaza, your footsteps echoing against the high, vaulted ceiling. The layout is precise, a geometric grid. In the center stands a massive dais, surrounded by smaller, kneeling figures that face toward a central altar. You reach out to touch the surface of one statue. The stone is unnaturally cold, vibrating with a low-frequency hum. The silence of the plaza breaks with a violent, metallic shriek from the ceiling. You spin around, your light cutting through the gloom, to find a massive, rusted pipe protruding from the masonry. It is buckling under immense pressure. Before you can react, the metal snaps. A torrent of black, stagnant water erupts from the breach, slamming into the stone floor with the force of a collapsing wall. The sound is deafening, echoing off the vaulted ceiling like thunder. You scramble backward, but the water moves faster than you. It surges across the polished stone, swirling around the base of the statues and rising toward your knees in seconds. The temperature drops sharply, the liquid biting through your gear. You turn and run toward the central dais, your boots skidding on the slick, moss-covered floor. You lose your footing, crashing hard against the cold stone, and the water surges past your waist. You scramble to your feet, lungs burning, and lunge for the steps of the altar. The water is rising with terrifying speed, turning the plaza into a churning, subterranean lake. You haul yourself onto the dais, gasping for air, as the statues begin to disappear beneath the rising tide. You reach the summit of the dais, your breath ragged, as the black water swirls inches below your boots. The altar before you is not solid stone. As the rising tide presses against the base, a series of hidden gears grind beneath the floor. The central slab shifts, sliding back with a sound like grinding teeth to reveal a narrow, dry passage. You drop into the opening just as the water crests the dais. Inside, the air is stagnant, heavy with the scent of dry parchment and ozone. Your flashlight beam cuts through the dust, landing on shelves carved directly into the bedrock. They are packed with scrolls and heavy, metallic plates. You pull one plate from the shelf. It is warm to the touch. The surface displays a map of the city above, but the geography is wrong. Beside the maps, a series of scrolls detail the final days of this civilization. They sealed themselves away, burying their knowledge. The truth is laid out in cold, precise lines. The city above was never meant to exist. It was built on a foundation of stolen silence, and now the seal is broken. The implications hit harder than the rising water. You trace the lines on the metallic plate, realizing the city above is not a separate entity, but a parasite. It was constructed directly over a pressurized energy vein to siphon its heat, a process that has been bleeding the subterranean world dry for centuries. The records detail a slow, calculated collapse of the foundations, a structural decay that the modern architects ignored in favor of height and expansion. You look up at the ceiling of the chamber. It is not just stone, it is a pressure valve. The vibrations running through your boots are not random tremors. They are the rhythmic pulses of the city above, straining against a foundation that was never meant to support such weight. The maps confirm it. The skyscrapers are sinking, not into mud, but into the very voids they created by draining the energy below. You drop the plate, the metal clattering against the floor, and the sound triggers a low, resonant groan from the ceiling. The entire structure is shifting. The secret is not just that they buried their history. It is that the modern world is built on a hollow, crumbling shell. The clock has just run out. The ceiling fractures. A spiderweb of cracks races across the stone slab above, and dust chokes the air. You do not wait for the collapse. You turn and sprint toward the passage, your boots sliding on the slick, uneven floor. Behind you, a massive support pillar shears with a sound like a gunshot, the stones splintering under the crushing weight of the city above. The entire chamber tilts. You dive into the narrow tunnel, hands scraping against jagged rock, and scramble forward as the floor beneath you begins to buckle. Debris rains down, chunks of ancient masonry slamming into the ground where you stood seconds before. You reach the vertical shaft, the only way out, and grab the rusted iron rungs embedded in the wall. The metal is cold and slick with condensation. You pull yourself up, muscles burning, as the tunnel behind you implodes. The groan of shifting earth vibrates through your chest, a deep, resonant roar that threatens to shake the foundations. You climb faster, ignoring the grit in your eyes. You are a ghost fleeing a tomb, ascending into the dark as the world overhead begins to buckle. The shaft narrows. Iron rungs give way to slick, moss-covered brick. You press your palms against the damp walls, hauling your weight upward as the roar of the collapsing chamber fades into a dull, rhythmic thudding. A blockage of twisted rebar and concrete slabs forces you to pivot, squeezing your chest through a narrow drainage pipe that smells of stagnant water and ancient silt. You crawl, your elbows scraping against the jagged edges of the pipe, until the darkness ahead begins to thin. A faint, silver glow flickers against the grime of the ceiling. You reach up, fingers brushing against cold, wet metal. It is a street-level grate. You hook your fingers into the heavy iron bars and heave. The metal groans, scraping against stone, and shifts just enough to reveal a sliver of the night sky. A beam of moonlight cuts through the gloom, striking the dust-choked air like a solid blade. You press your face to the opening, inhaling the sharp, cold scent of the city above. The air is thin, but it is free of the crushing weight of the earth. You pull again, the grate sliding aside with a harsh, grinding screech, and the full, pale light of the moon floods the shaft. The pressure in your lungs breaks. You are out. You heave your weight over the lip of the concrete curb and collapse onto the sidewalk. The pavement is cold, hard, and vibrates with the distant pulse of subway trains deep underground. You stand, your legs shaking, and look up at the skyscrapers. They are towers of glass and steel, glowing with artificial light, yet they feel paper-thin. The neon signs flicker in a rhythmic, synthetic dance, casting sharp shadows that do not hide anything. You look back at the grate. It is just a small, rusted square of metal set into the concrete, a fragile seal over a history that is miles deep. The city above moves with a frantic, shallow energy. People walk past, their footsteps clicking against the surface, entirely unaware of the crushing, ancient weight that supports them. The hum of the street, the tires on asphalt, the distant sirens, the hum of electricity seems superficial, a thin veneer stretched over a vast, silent void. You press your hand against the ground. The vibration is constant. It is not the city that is solid. It is the darkness beneath it. You walk back to the street corner, where the rusted grate sits embedded in the asphalt. A heavy delivery truck rumbles past, its tires thudding against the metal rim, sending a sharp, metallic vibration through the soles of your boots. The street is crowded now. Pedestrians move in a blur of motion, their eyes fixed on screens, completely oblivious to the hollow space beneath their feet. You stop and crouch down. The iron bars are cold, slick with the evening mist. You lean in, pressing your face close to the opening, ignoring the exhaust fumes and the distant, frantic sirens of the city. Below, there is only shadow. The darkness is absolute, a dense, heavy presence that seems to swallow the ambient light. You reach out, your fingers tracing the jagged, worn edges of the iron. This is the seal. It is a thin, fragile barrier between the frantic life of the surface and the slow, grinding history of the deep. The city continues to pulse, unaware of the vast, silent witness waiting beneath the pavement. The history is not gone. It is merely waiting. You stand up, your knees stiff from the cold iron. The city around you is a frantic blur of motion. Yet it feels increasingly distant, like a film projected onto a screen that is about to be pulled away. You look at the street lamps. They flicker, their light struggling against the encroaching night, casting long, wavering shadows that stretch toward the manhole cover. The noise of the city begins to lose its sharpness, muffled by the sheer, crushing weight of the earth beneath. You realize then that the surface is not the foundation. It is merely a thin, temporary skin stretched over an ancient, unyielding skeleton. The history you have traced is not dead. It is not even past. It is simply waiting in the lightless chambers, the sealed vaults, and the forgotten tunnels that pulse in rhythm with the city's own heartbeat. You turn away, walking back into the crowd, but the sensation of the void remains, a heavy, silent presence beneath every step. The light above is fading, the shadows are deepening. The city continues to turn, but the true history of the world is held in the dark, where it remains, patient and eternal. The screen goes black,